I'm Marian Barcus, and I'm here today with Judy Benham. We're going to have a conversation about coping with stress, anxiety, depression that goes along with our current bizarre environment of the COVID-19 coronavirus. I'm a board member with NAMI Grand Rapids. The National Alliance on Mental Illness has an affiliate in Grand Rapids, and I'm a board member with that. And I'll let Judy introduce herself as well.
Hi, everybody. My name is Judy Benham. I am also a board member of our local National Alliance for Mental Illness in Grand Rapids, NAMI for short. I'm also part of the outreach committee, which is what we are doing this in regards to supporting all of that. And then I am also a certified peer specialist, which is also known as a peer support specialist. I do that as a profession where I am an individual with a mental illness in recovery, and I help others who are working to move forward into recovery of a mental illness. And I hold the hope for them. I'm a cheerleader for them, and I share and listen and support them in their progress, and share what I do to help myself, and that maybe will help them. So thank you.
Yeah. So we're here to have a discussion with each other, really, about coping with the stress. And I'd like to reflect a moment that all of us are feeling a little bit of stress related to the pandemic, and in some ways, in some small ways, that when those feelings are kind of intense, the anxiety or depression or even grieving, those feelings, when magnified times 10, are not unlike feelings that persons with mental illnesses have on a regular basis. So, if there is a silver lining, or if there are some silver linings to the pandemic, one of them is that we're learning more about how each other feel, including persons with mental illnesses. So this has changed things for us. And Judy, what has changed for you with the pandemic?
Well, I'd like to share the biggest thing to begin with. The first thing that changed was that my work I started to do at home, and that was difficult adjusting. And I have I'm in recovery of workaholism, and so it was difficult for me to put away, because now the work is in my home, and to shut it off and set it aside, and where I had set up my home as being my home of relaxation and comfort and downtime and personal time. And then there is the personal stuff where I am borderline on the extreme of introversion. And with my mental illnesses, particularly anxiety and depression, I tend to very seriously isolate. And this was a situation where it was being promoted to do that. And that was very unsettling for me, because it was going against what I needed to do to be healthy in my mental health. So I struggle with that. It's getting better for me, but it's the unsettling, and it's not time frames. I can't look forward to anything. I've had to really work on my routines and keeping and maintaining my routines to get some sense of control with that, because the anxiety was like, I got to figure this out, what's going on, and my depression started kicking in because I'm at home, and now I'm isolating, with permission, but it's not okay with me. And does that make sense?
Yes, something you
Yeah.
have to do, but isn't necessarily good for you to do.
Right. It's
Yeah.
actually goes against really what's best for me. And it's unhealthy for me because it increases my depression and supports my depression. And it's a symptom of my depression. And so what I really needed to do was counter that. And by countering that, I, on a daily basis, would always be out and about and being productive out in the community and stuff to counteract my depression and my desire and the urge to isolate. And now with COVID-19 and the push to stay home and isolate for protection, and that was the big thing I kept telling myself, that this is to protect me and those around me, and coming to some semblance of understanding of what is going on and what the unsettledness is about.
It's interesting you say that, because I find myself frequently reframing. That's kind of an odd word, but reminding myself, rethinking how I perceive having to be isolated, almost daily, sometimes every few hours. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, I can't just invite people over like I used to. I can't just hug people. I miss hugs so much, but I can't just hug people, because I'm doing this for their protection, and I'm doing it for my protection. And so, I have to keep reminding myself, I'm one piece of a much larger world. And in order for the larger world, that's the whole pandemic thing is about worldwide. And so in order for me and this larger world to be safe and healthy, I have to change my behavior. I have to do certain things. And right now, I kind of cope with it a little bit by telling myself that this is a temporary situation. I'm deluding myself a little here, because I'm not sure, just how much of it is temporary and for how long. However, it gets me through right now to say, okay, for the next few days I have to do this, or for the next couple of weeks, my lifestyle will be a little different.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed for myself, and like I had said, that I borderline on the extreme introversion. And what I learned, and I was reaching out via text and email and phone call. And normally that satisfies me for my connection with people. And I can go quite a long time because I am very comfortable being alone and very comfortable with myself, hence the introversion. But what I learned, and I've known this but been in a bit of denial, is that I cannot be totally self-sufficient. I do need people in my life, and I need that face-to-face connection. And I'm not big on hugging, but I am big on the aura or the vibes that you get when you're with somebody, and the comfort feelings and the connections, because communication really is only 10% verbal, or I could be wrong on the percentage, but it's so much more, body language and physical senses and feelings, and I miss that, and that connection. And it's been hard making that and becoming aware of that. It's like, wow, yeah, I am borderline on the extreme of being an introvert and spend a great deal of time and prefer my time by myself, but I can't get away with, and I don't want to, because I like being around people for my amount of time that fills my battery. And everybody's different on how much battery you need to, charge. But
yeah. a good friend of mine who always coins herself as an introvert, meaning she draws her energy from inside, not from the outside. I'm an extrovert, so I draw my energy from the outside. And she was reflecting on the quarantine process and talking about how, for her, really, it's not that much different, and it's not so uncomfortable. But she was worried about me. And how are you doing this? Is this going to be hard for you? Interestingly enough, she was the one who organized the social Zoom so we could chat. And that was good. I was glad to hear that. I do find myself reaching out more by phone, by email, by text, calling people that I probably haven't talked to in quite some time, just to see how they're doing. And I think that helps me, as you were describing, Judy, with that idea of staying connected and being able to communicate with people.
Mm-hmm.
What else are you doing that helps you cope?
Good you ask that. One of the big things that I do, in particular with the isolation piece and the depression, and it helps with my anxiety, is I get out every day, and that's part of my routine that I have set up for years now. And I get out, I go to my favorite coffee shop. Now, we all know I can make coffee in my own home and have it, but I set myself up purposely to go and get my favorite coffee at my favorite coffee house, and I get the interaction with people that I've known for many years now, and I get my favorite coffee. I'm getting out of the house, which is part of the plan to counteract my depression and my isolation, and having that routine brings down my anxiety because I get a sense of control over my life. And the other things that I do is sometimes I do go into the office because there's a paperwork component to my job. I go into the office, and it doesn't have to be that there's anybody else there, because I go in the morning and there is nobody there. But it's changing my environment, switching that up, and not everybody has that opportunity. But I also go outside, and I started by 10 minutes a day, and I started just sitting on the bench outside my building to get the fresh air. And before that, I was opening my window when it was too cold to be sitting for a long time. And I would put a hoodie on and have my window open so I could get that fresh air, and I get the brightness of the sun and the, because we've had such a long winter, and it was continuing for a long time. And as everybody in this area knows, it took a long time for it to warm up. And then I go out and I walk around for 10 minutes. That's for my mental health. I get out, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I personally, for my exercise, walk 5 miles every time I go for a walk. And I do that 3 to 5 times a week.
That's ambitious.
And well, I'm working on things. So, but I love walking. That's one of my favorite things I've always loved. And I've conditioned for it in the wintertime on the equipment. So now I'm putting it into action where it's warm enough to do it in nature. And I do it on a safe trail. I get to see family because I stop and get a drink of water on my way back. And so I'm setting myself up for those interactions and getting my needs met by taking care of my body. And body wellness helps with mental health wellness. And I'm eating healthy. I am doing a lot of switching things up in the house, though. I spend time watching TV. I spend time on my computer playing interactive games. My interactive game is bingo. Other people may do different types of gaming, which, it passes time, and it's a distraction thing. And during COVID-19, it's huge. We need to use it in moderation and in balance for our mental health wellness. And I'm not talking about being addicted to to games and stuff, or doing that
Right.
and letting things slide. But there's a balance. And then I also play some solitaire games and some educational word games and stuff. Making sure I'm taking my medicine every morning and going through that routine, and getting my showers in and keeping my hygiene well. And so those are things that are in my routine that help me feel a sense of control and bring down my anxiety when there is so much unsettled right now. We don't have a lot of answers of COVID-19, and it helps me find some peace and some patience with what's going on around me.
You know, it strikes me as I'm listening to you talk about your routines, how simple some things can be that give us a sense of control, as you said, over our environments, and a sense of satisfaction. And you know, I just think it's really important to think about that. Most of us look for solutions that tend to be more elaborate. It's like, what do I need to do? How can I do this differently? And that's necessary sometimes. However, there's a lot to be gained from maintaining some routines that are pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and keep us grounded.
Yes, I'm very much into the more simple it is, the less complicated it is, the easier it is for me to do. And it really is extremely effective. They don't have to be complicated. Sometimes when we get to the complicated stuff, it's because of situationals, you know, situations that come up or something. Those are those times where
Right.
we need a quicker solution or something. And so it can be complicated at that time. But in our day-to-days and stuff, it's really, if we look at things, they don't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be hard. It's in fact, I find the best things that give me that simple sense of control and peace in my environment are the uncomplicated tasks of just maintaining my routines and doing the little things for myself, and that self-care, that it doesn't have to be hard.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I really resonate with your wanting to walk and needing on a daily basis to walk. I also do that for about an hour each day. Sometimes morning, sometimes afternoon. It varies with my schedule and availability. But I walk with a friend, and we keep our, you know, almost 6 feet as we walk. And there's another component to that, of course, and that is the connecting piece. And so for me, having someone to talk with for about an hour every day, sharing just the little things that happen in your life, the little things you're doing, it really seems to be very refreshing to me. And I need that. I have come to need that. There, you know, I do find myself sometimes thinking a little more about loss, and it's probably in the form of grieving. You know, I find myself, you know those stages of grieving, the anger and bargaining and ultimately adjustment. But, you know, I do find myself being a little more frustrated, more easily frustrated, easier to anger about mostly things that are outside of my control. And I find myself, you know, bargaining a little bit about that, well, you know, it's going to be better in a few months. Well, if I do things differently, you know, then I won't have to deal with this. I don't want to be angry. You know, I just want to be peaceful. And so I find some ways to sort of rationalize how I don't need to be angry about that thing that I can't control anyway. And I think I'm not there yet, but I think ultimately there might be a time when I have more of a sense of acceptance. And I don't know what that all means yet, but, you know, I know that some of the things that are happening now, I won't have to continue doing. So there'll be a time when I won't have to be mostly staying at home and doing only essential visits or trips. But I also suspect that even after that time has passed, we might be doing things like more Zoom conversations, more internet connecting with people rather than face to face. We might think differently about viruses and germs. I know that other cultures use face masks much more when they're out in public, even when there's not a pandemic. We might find ourselves being more tolerant and respectful of people who are protecting themselves and others. And so, and we don't know, will telemedicine become something that is more widely used, not just during times of pandemic, but maybe something that we've figured out is easier for people to get health care who are living in, rural areas that don't have transportation readily available. So, I guess I'm thinking there's going to be an adapting process that we will all kind of go through and may look back on this time as one of not only isolation, but maybe a time of learning new things.
Mhm, mhm. I agree with you. Um, some of the things that you had some points that I wanted to share with you about, and that is, um, I too get frustrated and stuff. I'm not, I wear a mask when I go to the store and into gas stations and stuff. And I have my choices and my reasons why I do that, and that's a personal thing. And that also gives me a sense of control when it comes to the unsettled lack of answers in regards to this brand new COVID-19 virus that we have going on. And I know that a lot of my frustration and my impatience is because I don't have the answers that I want, that nobody has right now, because it's brand new and they're working on them. And so accepting it is something that I am working towards, accepting that it is that there is no answers right now, and I am feeling unsettled and frustrated and impatient, and that's okay. It's how I take care of myself with that and what I do with that, that is what matters. And if I spend all night up pacing because I'm so frustrated and have myself in a tither
Mm-hmm.
because I can't figure things out because I don't have the answers, and I'm not working on accepting that there are no answers, then I'm not working on the solution. I'm stuck in the problem. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And we are, and I hope, I truly hope, being someone who is working in mental health and doing telehealth or telemedicine, hope that there will be an understanding that there is a place for Zooming or for telehealth and telemedicine along with face-to-face in especially rural areas when transportation is a huge issue. But you can connect with somebody via the telephone or via the computer, and via telehealth or something. I think I'm hoping that becomes an accepted form of the treatment that we are able to do and a part of the platform.
I do too. I am hopeful about that. I'm hopeful about some other things too. I've seen more families walking sidewalks together as whole families.
Mm-hmm.
The sidewalk art I think is absolutely adorable. I love that. I've seen some signs in people's yards and windows and driveways that are very personal and yet very public. And it, it's really fun on my walks, on our walks, to see what other people are doing to celebrate and to cope. So, we have as people an indomitable spirit. so the phrase goes, we keep hanging on to positive things and positive messages. And I think that's what keeps us mentally healthy in general. Have some hope about things. I was reading a blog from a professional who does leadership training. Her name is Kathleen Allen, and she has a website. And one of the things that she blogged about in early May was getting together with some other leaders. And she talked about comparing the pandemic and our need to quarantine to stay healthy with nature. And she described that nature has natural pauses. So animals hibernate during the winter, plants go dormant, and that's all followed by renewal every spring. Nothing stops that. It might be delayed or off course a little due to, weather extremes or a catastrophic event, but it comes back. If you've ever tried to keep weeds out of your grass, you know how much Mother Nature, takes over. And so, there's this sense of new growth following a time of isolation. And I thought that was a really encouraging and a sense of content about where we are right now and where we might be headed into the future.
It certainly is an opportunity for that.
Yes. I know our time is running a little short, and so we should probably kind of summarize or wrap some things up. But
okay.
I want to mention before we close that the website for NAMI Grand Rapids is available. All you have to do is look up NAMI and Grand Rapids, and you'll get connected on the internet. It is cram-packed full of resources. This month we did some special summary of helpful ideas for people on a weekly basis. Judy, you wrote one. And a couple of the other outreach committee members have written them, put them together. And so that's available. Also, the NAMI Minnesota website, which is separate from the NAMI Grand Rapids one, but linked. So they have, oh my gosh, I can't even count the number of videos. And they also have some NAMI Zoom groups that are continuing to meet so people can talk to each other about mental illnesses and coping with mental illnesses, coping with daily life these days. And also many reading resources. So those are really good contacts if people want more information about the process of coping and getting through this. We tend to be bombarded with information about what COVID is, but sometimes it's a little more challenging to find information about how to get through it. This has been fun, and it's been helpful, I think, to talk
I've
to
enjoyed
each other.
it. Yeah.
Enjoyable. So I'm going to make a couple comments about what I see as sort of summary ideas. Judy, I'd invite you to do the same thing, and then we'll thank our viewers and we'll sign off. I guess one of the things that maybe just a couple of things that I would mention that we talked about. Different people are going to find different ways to cope, depending on who you are, what your basic personality is. But most of the time, those are going to be pretty simple, pretty straightforward things, and they're going to be things that involve routine, and they're going to be activities that involve connection with others to some degree. And it might be a little challenging, but it's still pretty easy to connect, especially with telephone and internet still available. And what the heck, we all have some kind of a neighborhood. We all live next door to someone. It might be a mile away or it might be 10 feet away. You can still keep your distance 10 feet away and talk over the back fence or the side fence or on 2 lawn chairs. I mean, these are very simple things that make us feel better. And I think the idea of having hope for positive changes that come out of this, continuing to remind ourselves of the potential for growth that comes out of this is really important to get us through. What do you think, Judy?
I agree, and I support everything that you've said. I'd like to just add that I want to share and encourage everybody to understand that everyone has something going on in regards to COVID-19 with their stress level and their mental health. And it is, and it's okay. And anybody, I want to encourage you, anybody who feels like they need extra support, please reach out. That's available. The resources in the community are available for that extra support. We have really good places in the area for helping, and good therapists and that or even just connecting with somebody on there's a hotline or warm line and that. And then I'd like to just share that it doesn't have to be complicated, as it summarized, that it doesn't have to be complicated, and emphasize, like you did, that it can be the simple routines and what's most comfortable for you. And just if you're thinking that you want to go outside and sit on the bench, I encourage you to do it. And it may be difficult to do that, but if you need to, start with opening the window, and baby steps. Everything can be in baby steps, and I'm holding the hope for you.
Absolutely. That's what it's about. Well, thanks for joining us today. We hope you got something out of our conversation about coping with the pandemic and dealing with some of the mental health issues and needs that go along with that, and hope that you continue to hope.